The Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
We're in Fox's Grove. And that's Rat, isn't it?
It is Rat.
He's got a lead on. What's happened?
He's got a lead on because I came in here a couple of days ago to sort of investigate what we were going to do for this week's podcast. And the reason he's excited is because the other side of that really large sweet chestnut tree is a very large burrow. And Rat stood there with his head on one side and then the other, and 1 second later he was gone. And he spent 30 minutes down there, and I could hear a muffled bark from way down in the ground, and that's why he's upset, because he's intent on a repeat performance. And
Rat has been tethered.
he has, so I'll just pick him
It's
up.
for your own good.
It's for his own good. Come here. I'll just untether him for a minute and hold him. There. Right, that should cure the problem.
Well, it's lovely to be here once again, and we've had so much post over the last week, and I shouldn't imagine Rat's almost, near fatal plight probably didn't do you any good.
No, I was hands and knees whistling down, I presume a fox was down there, maybe a vixen. This is their peak season. And I remember Gilbert White, the vicar down in the south of the country, who kept a annual journal of wildlife happenings. And he described foxes at this time of the year with one word which is kind of stuck in my head. He said they're rank. And as he rode round the village on his horse visiting his parishioners, that word stuck in my head, because when I come out early in the morning you can tell where high ash foxes have been the previous night. The dog fox, which is the male, often scent marks, and it is a kind of acrid smell.
A little bit more than must, really, isn't it?
Yeah, rank is very descriptive. Anyway, my hands and knees and my head down the hole whistling to get this demented terrier back out. He was a long way down in the ground. It's sandy, gravelly soil here. And yes, it didn't do me any good, but I was so relieved when he came back, and I did a whoop. For joy.
Rat. How could you?
He certainly did. Anyway, we're talking about revival and all the things that happen out in the countryside, and I realised when I listened to one or two of the past podcasts, I kind of throw terms in really without describing what's happening for everybody to understand. And this morning we're going to visit some of the plants that I've talked about and just casually thrown in the word of what describes them best of all. Things like annuals, they're plants that complete their entire life cycle in 1 year, and that's the important bit. So they grow from seed, usually in the spring. Some plants need a frost to actually break the dormancy of the seed, and that's called vernalization. And so they then flower in that year, produce seed, and then it's the end of it at the end of that particular year, which is why they're called annuals. Then the next one would be a perennial, and that's a plant that grows for more than 2 years, and that's the important thing. And we'll be looking at some of those in a moment, because we're standing quite close to some plants which I can just see poking up through the leaf litter there, and some are in flower already, and that would be a snowdrop. And right beside us here we've got bluebells up already.
This is where the bluebells will be giving us a blue blanket later on in the year.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it, how the seasons, they're so distinctive out in the UK countryside. You've got 4 very distinct seasons, and you can plop me in there at any time of the year and I can tell you roughly when it is, because they're so sort of colourful and what's there at any particular time of the year. So they're perennials. They last for more than 2 years. Now, interesting, there's a set of plants that fit in between annuals and perennials, and they're called biennials, and their life cycle's rather different in that they usually grow from seed 1 year and then get a reasonable amount of size, and then the second year is the important one, which is where the biennial comes from, and they produce their flowers usually in the second year. Things like, I can just see one there, a foxglove.
This here?
Yes. Quite
Which
a
is
large plant already, and that will flower this year. But this time last year, it would have been about the size of a match head. So it takes 2 years to complete its cycle.
But they end 6 foot tall,
Exactly.
don't they? But at the moment, this is just flat to the ground.
Yes.
And all we can see is these cabbage leaves.
Yes, that's exactly what it looks like. It's kind of almost emerald green, almost a touch of blue in the foliage, quite large leaves over the woodland floor, and it's kind of protecting the area where it's growing, but it quite likes sandy, almost acid soil, which is what we've got here. So that's the 3 terms I often just throw about willy-nilly, and it's kind of important to grasp that, and then you start to get an understanding of what to look for and how to help nature by planting the different ones. But the perennials are always really, really interesting. That would be these bluebells in front of us. They come back, in other words, year after year.
For centuries.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing here, that probably these bluebells have been here since pre-Roman times. We don't actually know much about the wildlife of the countryside way back in the Middle Ages and beyond that. But something then interesting happens. The bulbs are down there, as they are with the snowdrops. They also produce a bulb, is a kind of fleshy collection of leaves, usually with the flower spike in the middle of the bulb, whether that's your daffodils, your bluebells, or your snowdrops, which are standing beside. So let's just move here for a second or two, because here are the snowdrops. And there are thousands of them in this area of woodland. We've had a problem here about 20 years ago where lorries occasionally drove in to the woodland at night and dug these flowers up. You can see all the flower buds on those just about to come out, and the very first one is out today on certain parts of the farm where it's a sharp south-facing slope. Another one over there just opening up. They've been in flower for about a week, and it's, well, the technical word is a galanthus species, and there's lots and lots of them. Just to butt in for a second, this dog is wriggling and wriggling like there's no tomorrow. Would you keep still? So he's a job to hold at the moment, but they're really lovely plants, and they've stored the energy from now. Just got this low sun coming into the woodland floor this morning. Remember, these woodland plants which we're looking at have to get a real shift on, because above us are mature trees, sycamore, which comes into leaf quite early, sweet chestnut comes into leaf a lot later, and spattered all the way through the woodland, oak and ash as well. So this woodland floor gets plunged into darkness. The foxgloves themselves don't mind, because they like sort of semi-shade, but these plants they're important part of the year, apart from coming into flower now, producing pollen and then seed, is to gather enough energy for next year. So they're a bit like solar batteries, is how I like to look at them. They're gathering through photosynthesis the energy from the sun, and they're storing that in those bulbs I talked about and underground. And so the bulbs for the snowdrops are about 2.5 inches down. And it's strange when we look at the bluebells in a second beside us, because they've got a trick up their sleeves, and have just, oh look, on that sweet chestnut there, the prickly case, just magic. There is a seedling from a bluebell, long white stalk with a tiny black seed on the bottom and a touch of green right on the tip of it.
So what's that doing above the ground?
It's been scrabbed. Look, rabbits have been digging here, and that's part of the seeds from last year of all the different plants that grow here. A whole series of different woodland plants which are fairly shade tolerant. They're growing, the seed drops on the ground, obviously. There's nothing to sort of put a drill in the ground and cover them up. So they rely on, firstly, the leaf litter coming down, and it's almost like a duvet, and then secondly, any mammals like badgers are always rooting about in the woodland floor here, and rabbits obviously there last night. And so they're digging away, and what's happened is it's just accidentally dug a bluebell seed out. Now, the bluebells are interesting for another reason altogether, in that they have these bulbs. You can just see, if we move some leaf litter, we might actually find some of the little baby bluebell plants coming through. Here's some here, just here. And after the first year, they start to form the tiniest little bulb on the bottom, and it's about, the best way to describe it, about the size and shape of a match's head. So that's their first year, but they won't come into flower for 4, maybe 5 years. But the interesting thing is when they come into flower, if I dug down and found one, it would be perhaps 2 to 3 inches down in the ground. Now, how does that happen? It's kind of magic, and I did have to look it up and talk to various people, and they told me something which almost made my jaw drop with surprise, because what happens is they produce the green leaves, they then die off, and about midsummer onwards, when we think it's all over, the leaves have finished, the flowers are finished, and just the leaf stalks are left with the seeds in them, the roots start to do something magic. They're called contractile roots. And what they're doing, as the plant dries and dies away, the above ground growth, in other words the green part, that's all finished. The roots start to contract. Crocus do it as well, another one, although that's a corm, and it pulls the bulb down into the soil very gently, but very consistently over a long period of time. And I know after several years, some of the mature clumps of bluebells, if I did bring a spade, which I forgot this morning, we'd have dug down, and some of them are down there 30 centimetres deep, the bulbs, and they're quite large, almost the size of daffodil bulbs, and they poke their way up all through this lovely sort of peaty leaf litter soil, because the woodland's been here for time immemorial, and it's quite ancient woodland, and that's how they get down there. I had no idea that happened. I just thought it was the annual deposition of all the twigs and leaf litter onto the woodland floor that raised the soil level, but it isn't. It was the opposite. It's the roots contracting year after year,
Digging themselves in,
then pulling the bulb into the soil. It seems impossible, but that's what happens, and that's how they're down there that depth. And after a certain number of years down there, you'll have a clump of bulbs, some larger than others, but all tiered above the bottom large ones. So the ones at the bottom usually come up last, actually, above ground, and the ones nearer the top, which we can see, there's some here completely different colour to the snowdrops. I just moved some. You can see them. There's perhaps a dozen just in a bit under the palm of my hand, and the whole of this woodland, it's quite a famous area of woodland for its bluebells, particularly. On Hyash Farm, I think the UK population's round about 70 odd million people. On this farm alone, I love it, we have close to 70 million bluebells when they come into flower. So one for everybody. Of course, no, we wouldn't pick them all or any. They're left, and that's the best thing for them. So there we are, a quick explanation, because this sort of podcast is all about revival, and it's a cheery time of year if you know what to kind of find out in the countryside. So we'll move to another area now where we can look a bit more closely at the biennials. They're the ones that take 2 years, because they're just as interesting as the annuals and the perennials. So we've just got to hop back in the truck, and I can then let this demented terrier down on the ground, and we'll escort him back almost under police supervision so he doesn't go back down.
He would have made a complete beeline to that hole.
Oh, absolutely. He was intent on going back there. That's the best day of his life to be down there. Yes, that nearly the end of mine. Come on, let's get back to the truck. Good boy.
back in amongst the trees, but this is quite a narrow band of woodland between two huge fields here on the farm, Chris. Rat has gone scootering off, so
he's
you're
allowed
obviously
to.
happy.
He's allowed to here because there's no fox burrows. They're just the odd, I was going to say the odd rabbit hole. You can see the ground just to the north of where we're standing is higher than the woodland tracks which we're standing on. And that's because it's basically a piece of Edam cheese, I suppose. It's absolutely sort of perforated with rabbit burrows. So we're standing quite next to a large rabbit warren. And that's the secret of why all these sort of dark green plants are growing here. Remember, we were sort of looking at annual plants, perennial plants, and then the middle lot is the biennials, and that's what these are. And these are foxgloves, a real massive display of them, right next to one of the permissive walks on the farm, right through the centre. We're in what's called barnwood, and it was called barnwood because there were some lovely old clay block barns just back there where we left the pickup truck, all built from clay mixed with straw from the farm here. And so all the local building materials were there, and of course the timber as well that did the beams. So and I can remember those as a child, and some of the machinery was stored in them over the winter, but more often than not hay and straw for the dairy herd, and the fattening beef cattle, and even the chickens enjoyed the straw as well. My father produced eggs at the post-war years, and each week the egg marketing board would come and collect all the eggs in great big boxes, 50 trays of about 30 eggs in each box, and the lorry would be loaded quite quickly. And same happened to the daily production of milk, but the milk wasn't collected by that time by the milk marketing board. It went direct to the local hospital in the middle of Norwich, St Stephen's Street, St Stephen's Hospital.
The old Norfolk and Norwich.
Exactly that, yes.
So he had a contract with the NHS?
Yes, he did. Well, it was before NHS years. The National Health Service was 1948. And I'm one of the first candidates of that, born in 1949, and it was way before that, 20 years ahead of that. So the 1920s and 30s, milk first of all went from Marksall, which was my grandfather's farm, and then carried on being delivered by lorry by my father from the farm here. It was bottled and put on the lorry and taken direct to the hospital as a very wholesome food, unpasteurised, of course. So,
well, I mean, one remembers being at school, and it was so important to have your daily third of a pint of milk, wasn't it?
Tiny little bottles, weren't they?
Wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes in frosty weather in January, the lid would lift off with a sort of tree trunk of frozen milk and cream coming out of the top.
Sort of cloud of rooks and
yes.
jackdaws.
Yeah. I don't know that we'll have time, but the flocks at the farm here this morning, the linnets, starlings, and the yellowhammers had just started to flock. But as we're busy doing this, it's very distracting to look round and see everything else that's happening on the farm. But anyway, I'm going to just briefly explain why these plants are here. And there's a profusion of them going right the way through, thousands of plants, really quite large and sort of looking mature. And you can see some of the leaf stalks and flower stems from last year down here. Quite large ones. Look, that one's about 2'6" long and a good 1.5 inches, perhaps 30 mil in diameter.
It's like a small tree, really, isn't it?
It is hollow, and that's just the remnants of last year's foxglove plant. Digitalis purpurea is the Latin name, and you can see them littered all over, and that's the beauty of these wildflowers. They grow, and quite often they're in settings like woodland, and nobody clears them up, and it all drops back onto the woodland floor, so they almost fertilise themselves with organic matter. But they're interesting plants. The leaves have a great deal of chemical in them, digitalin, and that was used by early sort of doctors in the health service and early on to treat heart conditions. It would slow your heart down, and it's still used, or sort of chemical equivalents of it are used still today in the pharmaceutical industry. It's a very powerful chemical, but the flowers are absolutely stunningly beautiful. And here, because the fertility, if I just move the soil where we are here, you can see it, there's no shame in putting that straight on your garden. Look at it. It's just go down. I'm down 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches down with my fingers. Look at that. And it's absolutely beautiful leaf mould, just perfect. Look, and I've dug it, and I've got clean hands, and that's high organic matter.
That's what gardeners call good stuff.
That is perfect, and the foxgloves love that. Now, the link between the rabbits and the foxgloves is the foxgloves, when they're finished flowering, usually about June, July time, that's the end of their flowering season. Remember, in the shade, they're actually under conifer trees, these ones, so the soil's acidic here, and they can cope with that. They finish flowering, and then they produce in tiny little seed pockets. Look, they're sort of round and about 1/4 inch diameter each one, and when they're nearly ripe, you can run your hand all the way up the stem and you pick up all the little pods in the top of your hand, and I put them in a bucket and collect some of the seed, and I sell it occasionally, and it goes all over the UK. And it's proper wild foxglove seed. The seeds are tiny, so one plant might have 100 of these tiny little pods on the way up the stem, and each pod can have at least 100 seeds in it, so you can get into the thousands of seeds per plant. So they're really prolific seed producers. That then drops on the woodland floor. If you haven't gathered them and harvested them, and I only harvest a few of these, it goes onto the ground, gets covered up by the leaf litter, and it can germinate in 1 year. More often than not, it goes through a phase of just being dormant on the woodland floor, and then when we've had the frosts, which we've just had, rats detected somebody walking past on the permissive walks.
A whole group of walkers.
Oh wow, yes. So they then can germinate, and more often than not they need a frost to break that dormancy. That word again that we used at the beginning, which many farmers know about, because you can plant winter crops which don't need vernalisation, and then the spring crops which do. And vernalisation literally means, vernal means spring, it means to regrow, so hence this sort of phase of renewal which we're covering this morning. And that's why at this time of the year it always kind of gives you hope, because it's something to look forward to. These plants are little beauties, really, there's no other way of describing it. They're just stunningly beautiful, and unusually for woodland plants, they'll attract bumblebees in here for the pollen. Those big digitalis little bells that hang down on the side of the foxglove, you can actually put your finger in. That's a Latin name for finger digit, actually. And children used to gather the little flowers, and when you take them off the stem, they have a hook in the end, so if you put 5 on your fingers, it really looks so you've got formidable claws. So they used to do that at school and scare the girls from the neighbouring school, which was Notre Dame School. Anyway, that's sort of
That's
things.
disgraceful.
Things boys did, yes. Yeah, you look like a monster. But they've also got little, on the inside, the little bell-shaped flowers, honey guides, little dots that lead the bees up, so they get the pollen brushed on their back. And that's the whole thing about coming into flower. You're inviting the insects in to get to the nectaries, although they produce very little nectar as such, foxgloves do. Bumblebees still go in there and feast on the pollen, if nothing else, and then take that back and feed the brood in the chamber. Honeybees will occasionally visit as well, and so something to look forward to when we perhaps come back in late May into this particular area of woodland. It's hard to then go back into the winter. Imagine all the deciduous trees around here, lots of oaks down in the lower part of the wood. all of them bare at the moment and all in full leaf with birds singing, and it's like another world. So, and that's the lovely thing about the countryside, how it changes, how you can't possibly get fed up or bored with it. And you know, one of the secrets is we've come into the woodland, I'm kneeling down on the ground, although it's peat, it should be soaking wet, and it's not, it's completely dry. And one of the secrets is, in woodland, there's some horse jumps there, you can sit down and then you let nature come back to you. And if you sit there, being still is one of the greatest tricks for nature watching. Because when you walk into woodland or out in the countryside, you're pushing the birds and all the wildlife away like an invisible wave in front of you. But if you sit still, sort of silence and stillness, birds use it. If you frighten a pheasant in woodland, it'll often squat down as a form of protection. But cats and foxes use stillness as a form of hunting. They crouch down and wait for a prey to come near, perhaps, just go down as low as possible and make themselves invisible. And the opposite is when they've got aggression, and you'll see a cat or even a fox stand sideways and make itself look as big as possible and fluffs its hair out, and that's the opposite thing to do. You really get noticed then. I tried it at school and the disco, it never worked, but there. So, just one little bit to do just on the other side of the wood here. We just stand up and walk away, but there we are, something to look forward to as the year progresses. Foxglove, digitalis purpurea.
Won't be long before they're in their full glory.
Yep.
Oh, this is where we were last week, wasn't it?
Yes, we were admiring the birds, and also we saw the Chinese water deer out there. We were on 2026's Teasel walk, and that's the second one of our biennial plants that we're looking at this morning. Last year's teasels are still here, and I generally mow them in February, March before the new ones come up. But when I said new ones, that might indicate they're annuals, but they're not, they're biennials. So last year's teasel's still here. The seed will have dropped out of the heads. I don't know whether I can get any out. There's still some heads if I turn
Still looking prickly though, aren't
Still,
they?
if I turn it upside down, will we
Yes.
get any seed out? Yeah,
a few.
there's just a few still left in the heads. The gales that we've had during the last month or two has knocked them against each other, and really the seed is all on the ground, which is the right place for it. We're just standing on the soil type's different. So in the woodland, when we looked at the bluebells, the snowdrops, and just recently the foxgloves, the soil is light and sandy, and we've only walked 50 metres on top of the hill, and this is an outcrop of clay that we're standing on, and teasels love this different soil type. All the plants like different soils, so we started to mention it last week of clays and sands and gravels and all the mixtures in between. And so this particular plant, Teasel, Dipsarchus phelonium, likes the clay soil, retains its moisture so it doesn't dry out. And you can see on the ground all these plants that are carrying out a very clever trick. They're spreading themselves out. The leaves come out of the centre of the plant and grow to quite a large size, and they go over onto the ground around them, so they're commandeered their own little growing space. So really, really clever. And you can see they're so densely packed from...
It's like putting your beach towel on a sun lounger.
Yes, that's one. Well, I thought you'd say something like that. To me, nature, we copy nature more often than you'd think, so that's one way of doing it.
But
yes.
they're making their space there so they can stand tall and grow good.
That's exactly right. And so they've commandeered an area, and roughly the size of the leaves out on the ground, prostrate on the ground like that, is roughly the area of the root zone as well. So they have sort of taken over a little bit of territory, and the more territory they take over, the taller they'll grow. So as you can see, as we look across, some of them are quite tall, particularly near the edge of the display. So what I brought you here is biennial plants. these ones will come into flower this year. So they're from seed from 2024, which is quite hard to imagine. The seed dropped on the ground autumn 2024, grew all last year as tiny little seeds, not much bigger to start with than your little fingernail. And now if I put my hand on the ground, I can't actually cover the larger plants. And in places they're packed so tightly they're growing over the top of each other just to try and get that bit of headroom.
But these are all in amongst their big brothers.
Yes, yeah, from last year.
The 23.
Yeah,
2023.
Yes, 2024. These would have flowered. Yes, so there we are. That's why it's called a biennial. Seed one year, spends the whole next year growing, and then the year after that they'll actually complete their life cycle, and that's the end of it. So they last 2 years and no more than that, whereas your annuals do it all in 1 year. These will take 2 years, as do the foxgloves, and then the third one we looked at were the perennials. So I hope that's kind of explained it. And just look there, grazing only about 100 yards from us, Chinese water deer, big ears, big teddy bear ears looking at us, surrounded and peacefully grazing away in the sunlight, and there'll be lots of hares out there too. What a lovely sight. There we are, the Norfolk countryside in midwinter, and it's bursting with wildlife as it should be.
Well, the sun is starting to get a little higher now.
Yes,
isn't
it is. Each day we're gathering this week ahead 10, 11 minutes of extra daylight per week. That's about 3 to 4 in the morning and 5 to 6, 7 in the evening. And then after next week it accelerates away and we'll go to 15 minutes by Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. My mum used to say we can have tea by daylight in the farmhouse. Tea was on the table exactly at 5 o'clock, and you didn't need lights on. So that's how quickly it changes.
By the middle of February, things are completely different.
Yes, there we are, about a month away from where we are now. But beautiful. Rat's been very good so far, but
Yeah.
he's not had the opportunity to misbehave. Half a chance and he would have done, but we've got him with us, which is where he should be.
Have we got some emails
We
this week?
certainly have. We're stacked out with emails and comments. So come on, let's get back to the truck and do some proper work.
Chris, the sound of some of your favourite birds.
Matthew, it's one of the success stories for conservation at High Ash Farm. The house sparrows, one of those red list species, declined by 50% or more, and we have over 100 here. It's a huge smile on my face.
Chattering sparrows, just one of the sounds that you can hear on the High Ash Farm podcast. But we need a favour.
Yes, we do. We're asking for donations and any help that you can give to help keep the podcast going.
You can make a monthly or just a one-off payment. highashfarm.com/podcast.
Well done, Matthew.
We've reached Chris's office desk here, which is the back of the pickup. Lots of people wanting to wish you all the best in your health problem that you announced last week.
Yes, I'm sort of still here and waiting for my final arterial test where they can find out whether I need a single, a double or a triple bypass. We haven't got an actual date yet, so I'm carrying on as best I can as normal, and I'm hugely appreciative of all the response that we've had. Too many emails to mention, but we'll try and get through as many as we can with some of the questions.
Yes, Susan Young wants to wish you all the best, as do Tricia and Barry Monkman. Thank you for your emails. Chris from Masham says, walking my dog around the churchyard here, the snowdrops and aconites are pushing through the hard, frosty ground. They'll provide a wonderful uplifting sight in the next few weeks. I was wondering, though, who else to ask but Chris, what insects will be about to pollinate them in the depths of winter.
Exactly, yes, because why do they flower at this time of the year? But there are several species of moths. We haven't yet been under the bridge where I take you usually on your annual trip to bump your head to see hibernating butterflies. But what you do have at this time of the year is quite a profusion of moth species. There's one particular species, got a very apt name, it's called the winter moth. And the males fly about at this time of the year. The females are wingless and they climb up. Well, we're standing next to an avenue of oak trees here at the farm. They go right to the top and jettison their eggs before dawn, right in the tips of the buds of oak trees, and they hatch out, and they're the ones that feed our blue tits and great tits, both when the eggs have just been laid and when the caterpillars hatch out in May and June, when the blue tits, great tits, long-tailed tits need to feed their young on protein-rich food, which has plenty of moisture in. So the answer's almost certainly species of moths, and insects as well crawling about on the ground. They also can pollinate.
Tracy Horsfield is in North Lincolnshire. She's got a small holding there, and she deploys 3 trail cams, and she's captured fox, badger, tawny owl, long-tailed field mouse. Lots of exciting videos, she says. And according to the place she gets the podcast, she's in the top 2% of fans of this programme. I suppose on number of hours listened. Well done, Tracy.
Yes, thousands of minutes listening over the year or two that we've actually been doing countryside podcasts. So thank you.
Althea and Peter Wilkinson say Papworth Hospital is the best place.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so, I'm glad I'm in good hands when I do eventually get there. When I'm given the date, I will pop off there, and I'll be back again for long, all being well.
Althea and Peter live in Wilmslow in Cheshire, and they say, we have to confess we often fall asleep listening to the podcast, which is actually a compliment, as it is a refuge from worry and concern, and then we listen to the second half again to make sure we didn't miss anything, so we get double the value.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
And hello to Claire Diamond, who sent a lovely note there as well. Thank you very much for your help with the podcast. Matthew talks about his heart situation there. He says, I know they'll have you up and walking in no time flat after the procedure. Love the podcast, says Matthew Slazowinski.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, that's what it's all about, sharing the natural wonders of our world that we live in, wherever you live.
And there's well wishes as well coming from Chris Hanley in the Peak District, and Natasha Van Bentham, who lives on the Pacific coast of Canada, which is an astonishing place,
Wow,
that, isn't it?
look
I
at
suppose
that.
Vancouver, all those amazing woods there.
6 hours behind us, Greenwich Mean Time. So.
Wishing you all the best with your surgery. Your positive approach is inspiring. I'm sure Rat will continue to be a helpful companion post-surgery.
I'm not sure about that bit. But, yes, Neil's just arrived to water some horses on this January morning, and he's taking umbrage to that now.
Laurie Sutton enjoyed hearing the sound of the gulls.
Oh, yes, on last week's podcast, yes.
Laurie listens in Michigan, in the USA, and he wonders, with the coal tits that we were talking about, on a previous episode we were in the bird hide watching coal tit, amazing close-up.
Yes.
And Laurie says they look almost exactly like one of my favourite American birds, the chickadee. Are they closely related? Their cheerful chickadee-dee-dee-dee call often brightens my walks.
Oh, right. They're not exactly closely related, but to look at, quite similar, although our coal tits are absolutely minuscule birds, almost one of the smallest UK birds, next to the firecrest and... Rat is going to join the tractor. I think he's deserting as firecrest and goldcrest are the two birds are smaller. So they're tiny little birds, not much larger than a wren.
And here's a final one, just to prove the international nature of the podcast, Chris. Here's one from Switzerland, I think. Anyway, Ken Windridge has sent us a photograph of a groundbreaking move towards renewable energy in Switzerland. He was listening to our recent podcast about the Norfolk farmland, miles and miles, square miles of farmland that's going to be used for solar panels. And he sent us a photograph of a scheme in Switzerland where the solar panels go in between the rails on a local train service there, or a railway, and there's an engineer just installing them. I suppose that's an area of unused land.
Yes, I'd always thought of the embankments, which we have some here in Norfolk on the north to south railway line to Liverpool Street from Norwich. There's some quite steep embankments, which means you can get the solar panels at exactly the right angle, and I've always thought of that as a wasted facility. This idea is even better, that the railway line with the solar panels in between the tracks means that you're not disturbing any wildlife or habitat whatsoever. It's there, and maintenance is easy access as well. It's
It might be a bit dicey if there are trains going.
well, I think you have to take that into account, but brilliant idea. Thank you for that. That's inspirational.
Well, we're almost done. Thank you very much for all your cards and emails, and that's just scratching the surface. We've had many more over the last week. Thanks for your support of the podcast. You can find out how to help out with the High Ash Farm website, highashfarm.com/podcast. And if you'd like to send a question or a comment or a brickbat or a bouquet for any future episode, we prefer the bouquets, of course, chris@highashfarm.com is the email address.
And thank you, everybody, for your incredible kind responses. Everything is hugely appreciated, and it's uplifting, as has the nature that we've looked at this morning been. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, everybody. See you again soon.
And Rat has managed to spend a whole 3/4 of an hour without going down a hole.
Yes. Come on, Rat. Back in the truck. Let's get some proper work done. Good boy.